Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. Do you know how to tell a good story, a good sales story, a story that engages people and kind of pulls them into your world emotionally, and then at the very end, of course, you may have a product or a service. We're going to talk about that right now. You'll find it very interesting. It's based upon a personal experience. Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderrocker, and once again, I'm going to share with you this story. We're going to talk about a variety of things today. We're going to move very quickly, and you're going to get a lot of new thinking, new ideas that are appropriate for 2023. Now, several years ago, I was asked by the manufacturer of Goldwell hair coloring products. They're a global firm, very large operation, and they had an idea. Their senior management thought that they could raise, consumption, of course, of their products, purchase of their products. And by the way, they're all displayed in hair salons only. This is Goldwell hair coloring, so to speak. And so they thought, here's what we need to do. We need to motivate and instruct the stylists who are there using our product as we're coloring customers' hairs, usually women, but not necessarily. So we need to somehow give them the opportunity to tell a story, a personal story that somehow gets twisted into you need to buy this product while you're still sitting in the chair. So it was an ingenious idea, and they brought me in for 6 hours. It was a 6-hour presentation to 100 of the top hairstylists in the entire world in a large auditorium out in Maryland. This is, again, a few years ago. So that was my task, was to teach these people. And by the way, they all regard themselves as artists. It really bothered them to think that they had this pressure on them and they were supposed to sell and promote and push. That's not how they look at the world. So this was a very interesting process, how we were going to get them to increase sales double-digit by instructing them in how to tell a story somehow about their life. And then the story has to link, of course, to hair coloring and the purchase of a bottle of hair coloring. So I did that. I got started with it and so on, and I had all kinds of formulas, different ways to come at it, how to set up a story, how to do it subtly enough that while they're working on somebody's hair, it doesn't seem too obvious. But a lot of them were introverted type people, very artistic and talented people. So I broke them all up into small groups and got them sitting by themselves in different areas around this large auditorium in Maryland, as I mentioned to you before. And I told them kind of what a formula should be, and how it would sequence. And a good story, as you know, always has a little bit of a twist to it so that the listener or the person sitting in the chair in the beauty salon would kind of smile and say, oh, that's interesting, and that would come out, kind of deepen the rapport. Well, anyway, so they did all of that, and they came back. It was lots of fun, and I walked around and overheard a lot of very interesting stories, and they were very authentic. A lot of people talking about some details of their personal life in these stories. Well, anyway, so I got up there, and I'm back up on stage. Thank you so much for revealing yourself and talking about following the formula. I said, who can we get up here right now to kind of get started with this, and we'll listen to your story and kind of analyze how persuasive it will actually be in selling a bottle of Goldwell coloring. Well, somehow a young lady out in the audience, one of 100 or so, raised her hand and she volunteered to come up on stage. She did that, and I immediately saw by her body language and so on that she was kind of tentative and quite shy, so I found this really interesting. She probably had a very powerful story, and everybody was kind of coaxing her to come up and get involved in this exercise. So I stepped down I thanked her for coming up, and there was a microphone here, and you can imagine the pressure. And of course, I stepped down off the stage, and there's 99 of her cohorts, shall we say. So she started to talk about some kind of a story, and this was the story that she had crafted with her small group a few minutes earlier. But there was the pressure and the psychological drama and obviously the self-consciousness, we know how that all goes. And she began, believe it or not, she began to cry on the stage, this big, large auditorium stage. She began to tear up and then finally begin to weep. Now this left, of course, all the people in the audience were feeling terrible for her and self-conscious and so on. So one by one, these hairstylists, and I'm off to the corner, I'm watching this whole scene. I thought, should I go rescue her? Should I pull her down or let her go? But at any rate, one by one, you're not going to believe this, one by one, each member of the audience left their seat and walked up on the stage, came up and kind of came around her, see, and reassured her and gave her hugs, one by one. It was about 5 minutes of people getting out of their seats, first one by one and then in small groups, leaving the auditorium seats, coming up on stage on their own now. I said nothing, by the way, to interrupt this process, and coming up there and giving this girl a giant and very touching group hug, reassuring her that her story was good and they were behind her and they weren't judging her, et cetera, et cetera. Now that was really a fascinating moment and kind of gave me an insight into that profession, hairstylists and so on. And we finally kind of got going there and they kind of moved down again. And so I was up there talking to them about how the rest of us, the larger world, shall we say, look upon them, because of course they really believe in creativity. Creativity is the essence of life for them. It's kind of a very fragile thing and difficult to explain and so on and so forth, kind of hard to get other people to understand what you mean, what your form of creativity really is. And so it's an interesting subject, but I know in my career that people, particularly business people who have kind of a linear, straightforward, dot by dot, go from here to there as quickly as possible. You know, that whole mindset's very left brain. And these are the people that don't understand poets or designers or artists or whatever you want to call them. And so I told them there, I said, you have to understand, I'm in the business world. So I talk to people about your creativity. And the room was just dead silent. I said, there's something very interesting that I want to share with you right now, because each one of you I know is insecure about who you are and whether you're creative enough of a designer, enough of an artist, whether you're living a decent life, whether you make enough money, whether you should have probably gone and done something else instead of become a designer or a stylist in a hair salon. I know all that is going on inside of you, and I know that the friction or the tension and the insecurity about it, the neuroses in a way, is eating away at you. All creative people go through this. It's very interesting. But I'm here to tell you something. This is what I told them from the stage. I said, those people, those other people want to be like you. They respect you. They crave what you have and they don't have. They're living a very uniform, standard, conforming kind of a life. They sometimes wonder, they question themselves, is this all I do, is just go to work and come back and live here and feed the dog and go to bed? And what kind of a life is this? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing with my life? That's what's going on inside of their head. And they wish they could be like you. They wish they could express themselves creatively and do unique things and think unique thoughts. This is what I told them. And as I'm going through this, I said, I just want you to feel comfortable and realize that the foot is on the other, or the shoe is on the other foot, you know. They wish they were you, and you kind of feel like maybe you should be trying to be them, you know. And this is a very interesting conflict in our culture today. Well, anyway, long story short, many of them were weeping. It was a very interesting moment. I'd never had anybody really respond to me quite like that before, but it seemed to be some kind of a big relief for them. So it's a fascinating experience, and that's the storytelling portion of WowBiz Nebraska today. I'm Lynn Hinderrocker, and before we go into this, the middle of our show, and we'll talk a little bit about a promotional sponsor, brand new, very exciting. But I will tell you about this because we've just been talking about the thinking process and creativity, and so on. You know, there's lots of ways to cut people up and segment them and stereotype them and just get to know yourself and them, you know, as distinct, different types of people. This is a very fascinating thing. If you're a leader, if you're a manager, extremely important. If you're a salesperson, you've got to be able to identify a certain type of person. So I'm going to tell you about the Herrmann Brain Dominance Instrument. And we're going to talk about this right after our promotional segment, but it's called HBDI, the Herrmann Brain Dominance Instrument. Now, essentially, a guy named Roger Sperry, who was a brilliant brain physiologist, kind of a specialist, years ago now, working with Ned Herrmann, who was a GE think tank member. Both very bright people, of course. And I'm talking now in the 60s and 70s. We all know, by the way, that we have a left brain and a right brain. We know that, and the left brain's logical and the right brain's creative. That's about all anybody ever knows. These two brilliant people figured out that the brain is actually a quadrant, 4 segments, and that each half of the brain has an upper and a lower, both on the right and the left side. So approximately think of quadrants kind of like this. And so, for instance, I'm going to tell you what they are. Now, by the way, this means that the neurons kind of concentrate. It's like we all have the same brain types, so to speak, or capacities. But some of us, the brains or the neurons, so to speak, are congregated, and they work best in a certain hemisphere or area of our brain. And there's four different places, so to speak, where that goes on. And that kind of gives us all a different way of looking at the world, a different way of processing information. This, again, is the Herrmann Brain Dominance Instrument. Now, I'm going to talk to you real quick about it, and then we're going to go into our segment. In one segment, we'll color code them as the red area. These are people who are real good with other people, salespeople. You want to look for these people when you're setting up a business. They can finish a sentence for you. That's how well they pick up on what you're about and what you're thinking. Then we go over to the left side of the brain a little bit, and that's where we see the blue executives, or blue thinkers, shall we say. These are middle management types, and they like to just move the process forward. They don't worry too much about the end result. They enjoy the process, and everything has to be in the funnel, and we all know people like that. And then in the, I hope I'm saying it correctly, then there's the green segment of our brain, which are the technical types, all right? And you use them to fix the copy machine. They do all the CPA work. They're very detail-oriented, concrete thinkers, and so on. So those are 3 segments. The red is on the right-hand side of your brain. The blue and the green are on the left-hand side. And yes, the blue and the green are kind of rational, linear thinkers. The red one is a more open, experimental, kind of open-ended type of thinker. When we get back from this segment, I'll tell you about the yellow brain. The yellow brain is in the upper right-hand area of everybody. Everybody has a yellow segment in the brain. It may not be your strength. You may not even tap into it. But right now, because of the importance of strategy, this is where I'm going. Strategy is so important. If you're a yellow brain, you have a natural bent and facility, the ability to think strategically and connect the dots. Connect the dots. We'll talk about the Herrmann Brain Dominance Instrument right after this segment of our show. But it's a very exciting show and a lot of information here to share with you, and I know it's helpful going into the new year. Now, we want to welcome and thank our promotional sponsor for WowBiz Nebraska today, and the name of the company is JanPro, Jan-Pro, JanPro. This is an organization owned by a dynamic entrepreneur here in the Omaha, Nebraska area. They work all over Douglas and Sarpy County. They have a number of small franchise groups. In other words, the owner of JanPro in the Omaha area is a master, what they call a master franchisor. The headquarters are down in Atlanta, Georgia, I believe, but he's the master franchisor. So he sells, his job is not to clean offices in the evening, but to franchise or sell a small franchise to groups, families, and so on around the area that want to do this for a profession, cleaning up offices and so on. Now, we all know that there are commercial cleaning crews. Mom pops, very, very small operations. Some are national franchisors. This is one of the larger ones with a lot of metrics, clear-cut procedure, very professional, and they have an incredible piece of technology. They can spray it in a room as large as this TV studio, and the mist will go up and clean every single square inch in the entire room. It's really quite an interesting organization and interesting technology, certainly medically oriented, COVID, whatever. This is the group that many people are choosing today. Most people have never heard of Jan Pro, but that's going to end. This entrepreneur is a dynamo. He's going across the entire state. Nebraska is going to give him, I think, a little bit of an assist there. They got a new operations director in place. So whatever standards and metrics existed in the past, they're going to go up. They're going to get even better, more precise. And the key idea is this. This is the idea that many people I talk to right now, business owners, including the gentleman that owns Jan Pro here in the Omaha area, we want to raise the bar, right? There's no other way to describe it. They say, I can't say that I need more transactions, I want more margin here in my profits and so on. Maybe we need to reach out and do a better job in our social responsibility. I'm not really, all I can tell you, Lynn, all I can say is we just need to go up a level. We just need to somehow raise the bar. And sometimes they'll even challenge me. They'll say, what does that mean to me? How do you speak about that? What does that sound like? Raise the bar. There's a sense of excellence surrounding the organization and the brand, and that's what everybody seems to be striving for right now. They think that if they can just raise the bar somewhat, that 2023 will be okay for them. All right, we'll see how that all works out, but right now I just want you to know, if you know somebody in the building, facility manager, owns, real estate developer, owns a building, give some thought, look up Jan Pro in Omaha, Nebraska. I guarantee you, they are top notch. They have incredible metrics and stories about cleanliness that they understand, technology, but let me tell you, they're going to get even better soon. That's right, Jan Pro here in Omaha, Nebraska. Okay, that's exciting. It's exciting to see entrepreneurs succeed, and then rather than just kind of floating along at the same level, it's really exciting to see them bring in new resources, redefine what success looks like, you know. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about right here, and say, what does it mean to raise the bar? How do we do what we do even better? And maybe we should be doing not just what we do, maybe we should be doing something, you know, slightly more than what we do. Or maybe there's something over here that's like closely related to what we do. You know, maybe we should be talking to these people over here, and maybe somehow we should be connecting the dots, creating some kind of a partnership or alliance or whatever. Now, I told you earlier, connecting the dots. There's a part of our brain, these gentlemen that I referred to earlier, referred to this quadrant of the brain. Everybody has this. We all have 4 segments. I've mentioned the 3 earlier, the red, the green, the blue. But in the right half of our hemisphere of our brain, there's what they call the yellow part of the brain. They're not being literal, by the way. It's entirely symbolic. But this is a very interesting thing. I talked earlier about these artists, hairstylists and so on in Maryland and so on. A good number of them would be what I would call, I'm guessing, of course, yellow brains. Yellow brains. Now here's what that means. People who are yellow, by the way, they can do all the other things like everybody else, all right? I want to emphasize they don't do just this. But they are definitely at their best if they feel strong and more confident when they are doing these things. Just like I mentioned red. When you talk to somebody, we've all seen these people. If they're salespeople, they like to talk and kid and joke and tell a story and laugh, have a good time. Here's my card. Would love to play around at golf with you. I'm sure that'd be great. Chatting a little bit. Pretty soon they can actually listen to the rhythm and the theme of your dialogue and kind of jump in and finish your sentence for you. That would be the red, the red portion of the brain that enables salespeople to be effective and to do what they do well. Anyway, but we're talking about this other segment, this yellow segment. And by the way, it's often owned by or leveraged by women, right, and entrepreneurs. Those 2 groups really hang out in the yellow segment of the brain. It's number 1. Let me try to think of some of the adjectives. I'll tell you if you can get into your yellow brain frame of mind. This is how it's going to be. You're going to be experimental. By the way, there's a lot of people that don't want to experiment on anything, all right? That's a big deal. But these people live their lives in kind of a brilliant experimental mode. Every every decision, everything that is there is kind of experimental. They're strategic. In other words, when somebody says, do you think we should launch a new product in March or wait till February after, or July, whatever, after we've had a lot of tests? So these people will go, well, our competition is doing this, and the whole market environment is doing this, and then the buying public is they're anxious and uncertain, they're doing this. So it means that this and this and this could be true. If that's true, then we should go now. See, and a red brain, a blue brain, or a green brain will go, wow, where did that come from? How do they know that? See, and that same person, when they leave the office and say, okay, we're launching in 2 weeks, everybody get going, do everything you need to do, they can sit down right then and there, completely forget about business, and write a poem. Or write some kind of a real interesting little story, 2 paragraphs about some observation that they had and so on. So this is a very interesting person. Now, the problem with yellow brains, up until recently, is that they mess things up for businesses, especially successful businesses. They can predict their profit. They know they have customers. They're on the spreadsheet. They're doing everything in a very linear formula way, you know. And here comes a yellow brain into the conference room, says, you know, I know it looks good on paper, but people are getting really burnt out on this product or this feature in this product. We really need to do something different over here. I actually found another alliance and some company over here that would work with us to replace what we currently are doing, and it would probably be maybe a 10 to 20% increase in sales within the next 3 to 4 months. And people go, what? What are you talking about? Everything looks good to me. You're off over here doing this, cutting deals over here. Amazing, right? I hate it, but I love it, right? They envy yellow brains. But frankly, a lot of yellow brains are actually escorted out of the conference room because they can be disruptive. Not that they're emotionally difficult, but yellow brains simply think in different categories. Think in different categories. And they avoid tried and true systems and theories and regulations and all that kind of stuff, and they are all about reinventing. Now, we've talked many times using that word reinvent, reimagine, reinvent Nebraska, reinvent Omaha, Nebraska, reinvent them all, right? Reimagine what it is or could be, because possibility thinking is really what yellow brains are all about. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you go to the web these days, this is a great little story now, and you go to a website, you're reading, you see a link, more about this topic over here. So you click on that right here, then you're to another website. Very interesting. I didn't know that. It's related to what I just saw. Let's see, I'm reading. Well, wait a minute. Up there, here's a link from the same author. I'm going to check that out. Now I'm going over here. You see what I'm getting at right now? People are actually becoming more trained to kind of think the way yellow brain people think. All right, and this is very, very exciting because we live in a borderless world, a global environment, and something somebody is doing in China could actually be very relevant to do whatever you're doing in your basement this very evening. So I just want to tell you, look for people who are yellow brains and use that instead of creative, innovative. Those are words that sometimes analytical types with red and blue sections of their brain working kind of rely on those areas. Sometimes they're the ones who are great at popping out a new product or whatever. So the concept is think about what these people are, how they are thinking, because the whole world is craving them. If you're on the internet right now, somebody always has a product like yours and it's a little cheaper, and you go back to your office and you go, what am I going to do now? Somebody in Slobovia is selling my product cheaper. What do I do now? And what you need under those circumstances is a yellow brain thinker. Yellow brain thinker will figure it out and come up with something clever and value added. And of course, that's key right now in this very odd and uncertain period of time that we're in. Now, This is WowBiz Nebraska. As you probably figured out, I'm Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm a consultant with a company called Nebraska, and we believe in new. And I want to tell you, just about everybody in this state believes in the word new. They don't know how to respond exactly, but when you say new, as in the first syllable of Nebraska, people go, I like that. I say, what would that be? Well, something new, maybe like a new product or something. I don't know. Innovation, yeah. You're on the right track. You're on the right track. So there's a lot of people in our marketplace today that are bored with the product. Workers are bored with the culture. They're looking for a way to take a rapid run at whatever is new. I know there'll be cynical people out there say, well, I never heard about that, and it sounds good, but I don't know anybody using it, so I don't know. I just want you to know we're losing 4,000 young professionals every year, and that's why they're leaving, because you are skeptical and cynical about what is actually new right here in Nebraska. But I promise you this, and I'm going to end up right now here on WowBiz Nebraska. I'm going to give you a phrase. I want you to remember it. Put it on your t-shirt, write it on your marker, whatever you do, on your desk. New is now. New is now. New is now. We're entering a new era. People are looking for personalization. They're looking for something fresh and new type of solution, new engineering, certainly new technology, quantum learning, a lot of stuff in the world. New is now. All right, my name is Lynn Hinderrocker on WowBiz Nebraska, and once again, I want to tell you the stories. This particular program is brought to you by Jan Pro. If you know anybody in the facility management business, building owner, real estate development, call them up and say, what about this? What about this Jan Pro? Do you know about Jan Pro? Check out Jan Pro. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching WowBiz Nebraska. More good stuff coming in 2023. Thanks.